Okay, so I'm really not going to teach you anything mind-blowing today. It's really not even going to be new information, but I want to take what we did yesterday and do something with it. We're going to get to do a little algebra today. Write down that equation, please. Bonus points if you can tell me what that would be graphically. Almost. It's an ellipse. You have an x squared and a y squared that have the same, the same, like they're both positive or both negative. They have the same sign value. But since their coefficients are different, it's an ellipse. If this were a 4y squared, we could say it was a circle. Okay? All right. We are going to find vertical and horizontal tangent lines from this ellipse. Can you visually think of an ellipse and think of two places we have vertical tangent lines and two places we have horizontal tangent lines? You need a visual?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Okay. So we would have horizontal tangents here, right? And we would have vertical tangents here.
I remember something from
Yay, Rico. So does Brayden, right? Brayden remembers something from Rico. Do you guys see that? Brayden watched my pre-calc video instead of my calc video.
How did you not realize? Because I was like in a time crunch, so I was like sleeping through it, just going fast. I was like, why are they talking about this?
Okay, so let's take this derivative. Derivative of 4x squared is 8x. The derivative of y squared, 2y. Derivative of y with respect to x, because it's a different variable. Negative 8x would give us negative 8 plus 4, just negative 8. Got excited. Plus 4y would give us 4. Derivative of y is dy dx. Derivative of 4? Derivative of 0? Whew, okay. Okay, go ahead and work your algebra magic and get me an expression for dy dx. I'll do my work, you do your work. Yours looks like mine. No, it doesn't. Good job. It doesn't look like mine. Now does yours look like mine? Okay. Okay. So, first of all, are there any questions about how we get there? No. Okay. Brayden, Alex, you okay with the algebra we did? Okay. So I want to find vertical tangency points and horizontal tangency points. Okay? And let's talk about what both of them mean in terms of our slope. Okay? If we talk about horizontal tangent lines, What's our slope when we have horizontal tangent lines? Our slope is 0. What about if we have vertical tangents? Okay, our slope is undefined. Okay, no slope, undefined slope. Okay, that's exactly right. Say it loud.
So like the horizontal is going to be whatever the numerator is, and then for the vertical it's going to be the denominator.
Okay, and it is referring to what? Or the?
What?
You're saying like the denominator and the numerator, but what are you referring to?
Like the top and the bottom.
Of the
right side.
of the the derivative. Okay, if we're talking about horizontal tangents and vertical tangents, having the word derivative would probably be important in an explanation. Okay, I could ask you to tell me, how do you find horizontal and vertical tangent lines? And if you don't tell me anything about the derivative, then technically you don't have the full story. Okay, so if we want horizontal tangents, we want our derivative to be 0. Okay, and if we have a fraction and we set our fraction equal to 0, what do we really care about? The numerator. So what does x equal? X equals 1. Do you think I only care about x equals 1? And probably, well, I think up there it's gone. Find the points. Okay. So I do want to figure out where x equals 1. Well, how could we determine that? Well, we know the derivative is 0 when x is 4. Right. Okay, we want to know the points on our ellipse where this is happening. So we know x is 1, which means we get to go back and solve for y. Yep. Okay. So what do we have? This is y squared plus 4y. This number is 4. This is minus 8 plus 4. I would love to. Okay. So 1, -4, and 1, 0 are our two places of horizontal tangency. Okay, so now we need, for vertical tangents, we want our slope to be undefined, which means we want our derivative to be undefined, which means if we have a fraction, we want the fraction, what part of the fraction to be 0? Denominator, because we can't divide by 0. So in our derivative, our denominator was 2y plus 4. If we set that equal to 0, we are finding undefined slope. Okay, so this means y equals -2. There's other ones, but I chose an ellipse so you could visually think about what was going on. Okay. But I mean, there could be hyperbolas, circles. I mean, the list is infinite. Okay. And sometimes you might not have a horizontal and vertical tangent line on your graph. Okay. There are some times where we get our math to like maybe work out here, but then it doesn't work out here, and so that there's not a point at all. Okay. All right. So we have 4x squared plus y squared minus 8x plus 4y plus 4. Right? Is it really that nice again?
Mm-hmm.
So y is negative 2. When we plug that in, x ends up being 0 and 2. Now, it is possible that we get y equals negative 2, and if we plug it into our equation and it totally doesn't even make sense, like we get 5 equals 0, then there's not a point on our graph that makes it work. And then there would be none. Okay? So if you get a value but it doesn't plug back in, it's not there. Okay? You just don't have it. Okay? Okay, real quick before we look at our free response question, I want to talk about how we would find a second derivative. How do we find a second derivative? We take the derivative of the derivative. Okay? So implicitly, we have 2y dy dx equals 2x plus 2. So I'm going to do two things at once. Everything has a darn 2, right? So when I take 2x plus 2 and I divide it by 2y, is it okay if I just write x plus 1 over y, and so then I don't have to do like 2's all over the place? Is that okay? Do you have to do it? No. But if I'm going to take the second derivative, it might help me.
I think we could like simplify because they're adding
If you factor out the 2 from the numerator, it's okay. Okay? Now, 2... What? Okay, so now when we go to find our second derivative, this is fun. This is fun. Our second derivative, what kind of rule are we going to use?
quotient.
The quotient rule. So the derivative of the numerator times the denominator minus the numerator times what's the derivative of our denominator? dy dx over y squared. And do we know dy dx?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We do. You have to replace dy dx with its expression, but then you don't have to simplify it. So, I mean, it's really not that much different, right? The biggest thing is when you take the derivative of y, write dy dx. And if you're in your second derivative, take whatever dy dx is and replace it. Okay, you don't have to solve for anything. It just is a big mess of fraction. All right, let's do our first free response question. Okay, this is officially our first free response question. So typically, you would get like 4 non-calculator free response questions to do in 1 hour, which would average out to how long per question? 15 minutes. Okay? Now, I'll give you about 15 minutes to get through this, but I also want to look at how it would be graded. Okay, so I might cut you a little bit short. Can you read that? Or is it a little fuzzy? I think I have a PDF. Well, is that better? Yep. Okay, you and your group are working together. Obviously, in a test situation, you would not be. But today, with our first free response question, I want you to work together. Wow. They're giving you the answer in part A. That is awfully generous. Isn't it? So you should not get letter A wrong. Will that mess you up if I turn that on? Okay, I just want you to be able to see your paper.
So you got X, Y space, product. So we're still
I want to ask you.
X would be Y squared. So first you're gonna have Y squared
Right.
plus plus and the derivative of Y squared is 2y.
I was kind of looking for the negative.
Oh, yeah, 2y.
Right, but that makes no sense. Okay.
And dy dx. So what's it? Dy dx. Every single time you do the derivative of y, you need dx.
Oh, I had it times. I thought I had
This is and then times y. 2yx. If you can and then minus, and then it is another product, so it's x cubed, which is 3x squared y plus dy dx is 1 times x squared, which equals 0, because the then you need to get everything that's not that doesn't have to y x, the opposite end. So you'll have 2yx, 2yx, dy dx. Plus dy dx. No, plus x to third dy dx. Equals negative y squared plus 3x
What?
squared
Regular
y.
numbers. I'm sorry.
And then you divide that by 2x1 or 2yx
I just because I don't eat breakfast.
so it is dy dx.
Yes.
Oh,
It's a
my
huge
trophy.
bag, and I'm eating all day.
That would've been
You
good.
got one of the Valley's jumbos?
Take some, please.
Minus y squared over 2x1 to 2yx.
So I want
X.
on the curve,
Just keep it.
x coordinate
There
is
you
one.
go. That's x. Alright, now x.
On the curve, I
At all
want the x
points,
coordinate.
x coordinate is 1.
Oh,
And then you use your derivative for when you're writing it.
For b, you equals 1 as x is y squared.
Yeah.
Y
So wait,
squared
are we putting in the derivative?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Squared minus y equals 6. And then you got y. So you got y minus 1 equals 6.
You had a very thoughtful face. Okay, I just want to. Okay, okay.
So we plug it into
And it would be 3.
the original.
3 minus 1
We plug one into the
That's fine. I got negative y squared.
You want to just send equal to 0.
Over 2y minus 7.
Who wants that?
So I plug
I remember that's all you said. The only thing you
It's
need
a 2x y minus
Well,
and then we have to put it equal and it two different find out.
right.
So yeah, y squared
So the biggest thing,
y minus y
well, the biggest thing, like, if you
Got it.
we have
Got
two
it.
factors.
minus 7 equals
Yeah.
3 minus 1 is 2 times 4 is negative 2 minus 1 is negative 6.
You know.
Find the y value.
So you just gotta kind of assume that there's going to be
I
2
don't
points. And then we need to find the vertical.
Wait. So
Yes.
Yep, 2x. X.
Well, I want on the curve whose x coordinate is 1.
X.
So which one's the curve?
Y.
The normal one. So on the curve, I want x to be 1, but then once you figure those out, then you can use your derivative to figure out the slope for your tangent.
wait. How?
So
Well, if you figure out, so you have x is 1,
Yeah. So I plug it in.
and you're going to solve for y. So you're going to have an xy coordinate.
Oh, I forgot to change 6 on the other side.
Sorry, Tristan.
y squared.
I got it.
And that will be your.
I think so.
I'm just
Getting your derivative? So this is x is minus y.
Yeah, this is equal to
So you have x,
I got
so you have 1 times y squared
3 and negative.
plus x times How? Why?
You subtract the percentage
Because it's x times y squared, not xy squared.
Wait.
Like there's no parentheses here. The square is only with the y.
through a factor.
Too much.
It is.
One
It's not,
three,
it's not what it
two.
is. You need a, okay, you need to plug
But I
the
got
3 into
like
1
y
and for x
squared.
and y. So you have to
Oh.
He's done one in one.
I haven't done it yet.
It's like in your head, you're thinking
I
about
don't
it.
know what to do.
I factored out the one. No, if you subtract the
I
6
mean, that's
over
just fun.
and set it equal to 0, then you can factor.
What's going on here?
Find the x coordinate at x.
Got this.
So then,
Oh, equals
do you
0.
write the,
2y minus x squared
put
equals
the
0.
y minus y equals.
I know, but that's a start.
Oh yeah, we have
So when we have to plug in,
No, I think
This is actually really plugging
so. I think we gotta.
So up here you
but we have 2.
and factor also set equals
Yeah.
I'll give you a couple more minutes so that we can look at how it will be graded. Okay, I am cutting you short a little bit, so. Now, there.
Plug it in the rear, right?
Because there's no way I would pass it. Those things are so hard.
You are right, they are. But you have to get a 60% on the AP test to get a 5.
This is one of the.
No, I don't want to learn to look for the actual point. And then you find then
What about not getting an A?
So,
like before X equal.
an A should translate
So you
to a
take
5.
out y
A
cubed
B,
of y or y squared.
that's fine.
Well, I got an 8 in a
I just get off the top point.
and I got it.
And plug one in for X.
So I have already started giving you AP tests, right? We have already started looking at AP
No, not the
tests.
correct number.
We spent 3
Yeah.
entire weeks
It's
going
gonna give
over
me
tests,
all my white points.
going over AP material, and you take an
I
entire
got 6 over 5.
Yeah, which will.
So I did that, but I got 6. So we plug in.
I plugged in 3 and 1.
What is it?
3 times 3 is
9.
maybe and you'll
So
get
where'd you get 6?
like I thought
Wait, but
It's y squared minus
for my final.
These are my-
Like you're gonna do so much work, you really
Yeah,
are.
it's
Okay. Well, they both have an extra one, so I can factor in that an extra.
Oh, this.
And then you can set your factor equal to 0.
Yeah.
So that's.
0.
And then I got.
So it should be 0.
It does cost me. It's a guarantee.
So I think it's just y.
Yeah.
That equals 0. And the whole thing. And then plus that.
But
you always.
No, it's but.
So it'd be y minus 1 equals.
It's just.
Okay, look up here. First of all, Allie was asking me some questions about the AP test. And I know that the problems you've seen from the AP test have been kind of scary. But I promise you that when we get to the AP test, all of you will be ready. We are going to do so much work through this year to prepare for the AP test. It will not be a problem at all. Okay? We do AP work throughout our units. We spend 3 weeks reviewing our material, and then you take a practice test for your final. And then you take the AP test. And you are going to be ready. So I don't want anybody to be worried. It's hard right now because we're just starting. All right? So this is what we've got. Okay? Well, you get this. All right, let's focus here. We plug 1 in for x. We get 3 and -2 for y. You need to find the slopes to write your tangent line equations. So y equals 3 is 1. And y plus 2 equals 2 times x minus 1 is the other. And then can you see the work down here? So vertical tangent line means denominator of the derivative is 0. You factor out an x. So x is 0 or y is 1/2 x squared. Well, what happens when you plug 0 back into the equation? You get 0 equals 6. So instead, plug 1/2 x squared in for y for the original equation, and you get x equals the 5th root of -24. And then they say stop. But look at this. If you set the denominator of dy dx equal to 0, you get a point. If you did A, you got 2 points. If you're getting 6 out of 9 points on each of these, you're headed in the right direction. Okay? Do I expect you to get 9 points out of 9 points every single time? No, I don't. But if you're getting about 6 points on these, you're headed in the right direction for a 5. Okay? All right. Do your homework, please. Do your homework, please.